morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for inviting us back to continue our discussion of the Orphan Drug Act. We, as AbbVie's ethics team, are glad that you share our concerns, and we are excited to discuss the ethical implications of this legislation as they pertain to AbbVie and the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. When we last spoke, we discussed the fact that the current application of the Orphan Drug Act does not align with the original intent of the legislation. When it was passed in 1983, the Orphan Drug Act had the goal of making treatments for rare conditions more readily available by incentivizing pharmaceutical companies to produce them. However, today, legislative loopholes allow pharmaceutical companies to take advantage of the power difference that exists between them and consumers to raise prices. This is evident in the skyrocketing prices we've seen in the headlines lately, and the hindrances to competition that have arisen from multiple periods of exclusivity. We also discussed some recommendations that we've set forth for AbbVie to review for future use. Today, we would like to review how those recommendations address our ethical concerns and align with our core values of enduring, caring, pioneering, and achieving in more detail.
Our first recommendation is for AbbVie to review its pricing policy. What we mean by this is that AbbVie should assess its costs and revenues when coming to its final market price of orphan drugs. With the government greatly subsidizing and promoting the production of orphan drugs, it makes sense that a significant increase in the price of an orphan drug should be justified by an increase in the production costs. A sudden, unjustified increase in the price of orphan drugs puts the company at risk of facing backlash and negative criticism from the public and other stakeholders. And this could be damaging for the long-term reputation of the company, as it could lose trust of the stakeholders. Now, to give an example of a recent example in the industry, to give an example of a company in the industry, Marathon Pharmaceuticals, a company that produces the orphan drug Emflaza, recently launched its orphan drug Emflaza and announced a list price of $89,000. However, this was met with negative public relation, as people complained that patients had been able to buy a similar generic products from other companies, which was worth less than $1,000. The implication here was that Marathon Pharmaceuticals used the fact that it had the exclusivity incentive, which protects us from competition, to charge excessively high prices for a drug that is obviously cheaper in other countries and has been made for decades. With the current criticisms about the ethics in the orphan drug industry, we should be vigilant as AbbVie to monitoring our prices to ensure that we do not fall victim to the slippery slope of being unethical as other companies have done so in the industry. As AbbVie, we have not been accused of being unethical in the industry. However, we face to receive those accusations in the future if we do not make sure that we are taking steps to ensure that we are using the Orphan Drug Act for the purposes for which it was intended for originally. By reviewing our pricing policy, we are trying to make sure that we are avoiding to take advantage of our power difference over customers who cannot negotiate prices. We are also trying to make sure that our drugs are as accessible as possible to patients who depend on them for their lives and who depend on us to use the Act for the purposes, for the good for which it was intended. By also reviewing the pricing policy, we are reinforcing our commitment to providing innovative and accessible drugs to patients of unmet needs, and also fulfilling our moral responsibility to protecting our shareholders from lasting negative impact should the unethical accusations fall on AbbVie. Moreover, by reviewing our pricing policy from an ethical standpoint, we are cementing a defense. We are cementing a defense for future possible unethical behavior accusations, while also upholding our values of caring for consumers and shareholders, as well as pioneering and inspiring the industry, as well as pioneering and inspiring the industry to move in the right direction, to be ethical through our self-regulation and responsible pricing. We are also upholding our value of enduring by showing the commitment to be an active participant in the conversation about the misuse of the Orphan Drug Act in order to set an ethical foundation for the future.
Our second recommendation is setting higher standards for the industry by working with pharma. Pharma is a trade group that represents all of the companies within the pharmaceutical industry. By working with them, we are going to advise to create an integrity pact. It will be similar to the Defense Industry Initiative. Let me tell you a little bit about the Defense Industry Initiative. It was created by the CEOs within the industry. They got together and recognized that there was a widespread fraud and criminal misconduct and dishonesty within the industry. So they came together and said that we have to fix this. We have to change the reputation of our industry. So since then, it has been very successful. The industry has been much more trustworthy, as well as the CEOs have been acting more ethical. Because we see the success with this, we want to incorporate similar idea within our industry to increase more ethical behavior. And we are doing this because we want to be the leader. We want to endure for a long time. We can't sit back and watch what is going on. So the main reason for the ethical integrity pact would be to serve as a constant reminder to be watchful about avoiding excessive pricing for orphan drugs. When signing the integrity pact, each company will be giving the right to pharma to review their costs as well as their revenues every time they're hiking their prices. If their prices are hiking but then their costs are staying the same, that clearly will show pharma that there is a problem. They are taking advantage of the monopoly that they received through the act. So, for example, a company raises their prices by 300%. The pharma will call them in and question them that why can we get a reason for it? And if they're not able to justify their hikes of prices, that shows that they are just abusing the act, which is what we really do not want. So we would recommend having this pact signed by the CEOs on a yearly basis. We want it yearly basis, so it's a constant reminder for each person, for each CEO, to act ethically, to be more transparent, as well as committing to being ethical within their industry. By motivating the CEOs to act more ethically, they will inspire their followers, they will inspire the people that work under them, and as a result, we expect that on the long term, we will be able to set higher industry standards just like the defense industry. And upon violation, we want pharma to call the companies in and question them or publicly denounce them. Well, you may think that's a bit cruel. Yes, it is. But the thing is that by publicly denouncing the company, we are making this a social problem. And when you make it a social problem, when you include the customers who are the actual consumers of these products, you are giving them the power again. So every time a company violates a rule, they are publicly denounced, and with the fear of losing those customers, they will be forced to act more ethically. And so by doing this, we are being proactive instead of reacting. So we do not want to wait until somebody else steps up and somebody else takes the lead and says that, okay, we need to change this, we need to make our industry more ethical. So we want AbbVie to be the leader. We are living in a time where everything is changing, but surprisingly, not a lot of changes have been done with to the Orphan Drugs Act. So with the rising concerns among the customers as well as the insurance companies because they do not like paying high taxes, and the legislatures, we know that the change is coming. It's inevitable. Well, the real question is, who will be the change? Who will facilitate the change that is coming, that is on its way? We, as the employees of AbbVie, want AbbVie to be the change, to facilitate that change that is coming and be the leader of the industry. Because we need to remind everyone in the industry that no matter what business you are in the basic business of human well-being. And human well-being is everyone's business. So we want AbbVie to step up and be the leader.